That's a horrible start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of In Lay Terms today. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and I am very happy that I finally got Jason Stockton of Wiretap Media. Jason, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think you tried I think it was like last year you reached out to me and I was kind of like camera shy then and I didn't really want to do an appearance, but yeah, it has been a little while. So yeah. I'm
Yeah,
happy to be here. So it's
I'm
good.
surprised you remember. Yeah, I reached out to you during the election. I really wanted you on, but it's fine. It's not for everyone. But
Yeah.
we did. I have a podcast on Saturdays with Andre Milosh and Timothy Knight, and we were talking about all the bad media, and I brought up Wiretap Media. I'm like, they're doing good work. Like they're, it's not easy because you still have to make money. You have to get clicks, but you want to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't always get it right and I may not even be reporting what people want me to report on, or I'm trying to report on things that I think that matter and should matter to Canadians. And I am conservative, although like I'm not a conservative. I'm a card carrier, but I'm not a voter. Um, I think they've kind of fell short in hitting certain topics that we need to talk about. The financial corruption, Ukraine, these sorts of things aren't being talked about. Mass immigration, just everything that's happening to our country. I feel like the conservatives kind of float around it for votes, and I think we have to stop doing that for just to make people happy. I think we just have to start being honest with everybody.
I share the same view. I always say the Conservative Party's flaw is that they're trying to form government, and if you want to form government, you have to cater to the centrist, the center, and
Yeah.
that's when they sell out their values, and then it's just a
Mhm.
spiral.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's just unfortunate that that's the way it's going. I noticed that we're also even the conservatives are pushing more to the left, which I think I think becomes scary and should be scary for Canadians because then all you have is left wing politics and communism. So, and it's going to get to that point. Maybe, I don't think we're uh, like I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't think we're officially communism or a communist nation yet, but we're reaching that point. And you say in 15 years from now, if the conservatives keep on getting pressured into these left wing ideologies and they're not standing up for right wing Canadians, then we are going to end up being a communist nation, and there's no doubt about that.
Like left wing, right wing. It's not even so much like blue hair versus I don't know Second Sons or whatever. It's just like 60% of my taxes going to the government
Yeah.
versus let me keep my money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the taxing portion, that's the brutal part. You know, like what is it, like 64% of people's annual income are going towards taxes, like their household income. Um, how do you save money when you're paying over 50%? Like it's almost unrealistic. It's not even possible. And then we have all these unvetted asylum seekers, immigrants. A lot of them don't have identification. A lot of them just showed up at our doorstep. We're housing them in hotels. They're getting allowance, and they're getting tax dollars. And I find it interesting when some of them talk about I saw a few posts where a gentleman was talking about how his neighbor that bought his house was like an immigrant living in a hotel and had everything paid for, and they just saved everything the government gave to them, and they had a massive down payment. And it's just and I don't know if that's true, but if those stories are happening, and Canadians are kind of being left out into the cold, especially like we see our veterans, they're struggling to survive. Um, and even people with drug problems, like the way we're addressing the drug issues in this country, I believe we have to give these people proper facilities and proper care, and we have to stop aiding and abetting their issues. Right? Is It's just like it's like a kid. A kid's not going to get better if you keep on, rewarding bad behavior, and that's what I see Canada doing. And I hate to say it, but I just feel like it's all by design. Like I feel like this is managed decline, and they actually they need this progression to happen in order to like install future plans, so to speak. Because if you create harsh conditions, and people are more willing to accept that maybe UBI is a good answer, maybe maybe MAID's a good option, all this kind of stuff. So, and it's a shame that this is what Canada's become, because this is not the Canada I grew up in.
Uh, I could pick up on so much of what you said.
Yeah,
Let's go with the last one. My view is a little bit even more extreme than yours. I think there's a war going on. There's two factions, so we could call it the globalist deep state, City of London,
sure.
and
Yeah,
then the nationalist deep state, which I would say is Donald Trump, but also Vladimir Putin and China. So
sure. Yeah,
Putin has managed to push back. He's defined the model. They're moving along, and America's kind of starting. And I think, I mean, Trump's let me down so much, but I think he's basically managed to make it impossible for them to start a massive war in Europe. So they're panicking, and they're just like, whatever, let's steal whatever we can from Canada, our colony.
hmm yeah. It's that's what it feels like. It feels like we're getting robbed blind. It's and I don't know. It's you know obviously, like, we can go totally black pilled, and we could just say, like, you can't trust anybody. But I have faith that that I have faith that like, obviously right now Canadians are so demoralized that they're just accepting what's happening. Like, for example, something that really bugged me recently, and I just released a video on it, is we had Palestinian protesters burning our flags in our streets and chanting "Death to Canada." And now we're raising their flag in cities across the country. And there's no doubt in my mind, and this isn't a dog whistle for Israel, because I disagree with what Israel has done, with the genocide. But I think this is all part of, like, the puppeteering that's happening, like, and the funding. And you need the military industrial complex operating on a regular basis. And you need chaos. They need these sorts of things to be functioning. And I think what happened was, when Ukraine didn't really bite, and we didn't bite on the Ukraine deal, like, and I'm glad the populace, like, although the governments followed because they wanted their washing machine to happen, I'm just glad that the populace didn't really bite onto it. The numbers were so small that they couldn't gain popularity for the war, because I suspect that they were going to launch us into World War III, like, boots on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
And but we didn't give it to them. It's just like World War II. Like, you if you go back and you kind of you read the communications between Churchill and like the Zionist organizations and stuff, and they were talking about, like, the Zionists were basically talking about how they had the American public all primed for this war, just give us a reason to get there, and they just couldn't do that here, with America. And because I think things are so bad, we just want to put our countries first. And I don't think they counter. I think there's a lot of mistakes that they made, and they're trying to correct them now as well. When we talk about the deep state, or like the globalists, is, especially over COVID, I don't think they calculated for like, online podcasters, what type of effect they would have on, the thoughts and opinions of people. I think because they had the media captured, and they thought that at that time, a lot of media or online media was just like goofy shit, like people dancing, and they didn't expect it to be a revolution, and I don't think that they really, you know, work that into their calculations. And that's why I think we're even seeing some influencers that are coming up. They're you're seeing like the state even starting to like fund these people, and there's a reason
Yeah,
for it,
yeah.
right? So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting off into the weeds and just rambling on here, but I gotta
No, man,
create.
you're
I
not
got
rambling. I'll add some of my input.
Yeah,
When
yeah, please, yeah.
when COVID happened, it was kind of surprising, but looking back, there was sort of an internal logic to it. Like if you
Mhm.
believe that the virus is deadly, and if you believe that the vaccine works, and if you believe that only everyone has to take it, then there was a logic to that. And then the Ukraine war started, and I'm
Mhm.
like, guys, this is racism. Like, you can't just steal people's assets because of their ethnicity, and
Yeah.
they attacked me, and I looking back now, I know that that was an extension of COVID. Then the election happened in April, and I ran federally for the PPC, and it was sort of the same thing. Like, they just activated the people, elbows up, Orange Man bad, but then there was no internal logic. I'm like, but like the Liberal Party's been in power for 10 years. They're the ones that destroyed the economy. Like, no, 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 Orange Man bad.
Yeah. It's strange, how they almost prime the Canadian public, because you even see that there's even conservatives themselves that, like even Pierre Poilievre supporters that don't like Donald Trump. And, he has, I'm a little bit, like, I don't wanna get into Donald Trump because, like, I'm really disappointed him in this term. Like, I feel like he's kinda rode Israel's back, right? And I don't know if he was captured along the way or what happened, but it just seems like he's running on a completely different platform. And yeah, it doesn't make sense because his first term was like an America First agenda,
Yeah.
and he was about the economy, he was about building jobs, and this is everything that Canadian conservatives stand for. So to watch some of these boomers just completely lose their mind as soon as the mention of Donald Trump, as soon as his name comes into the conversation, and then we got to save the country from another Donald Trump is crazy. But in my opinion, I personally think I have this suspicion, and this is obviously my conspiratorial mind and the uniparty thought that runs through my mind. I believe that Pierre Poilievre threw the election to Carney. It was always supposed to be this way. The Liberals are meant to be the enemies, and the populist white majority is supposed to have a hero, and that's supposed to be Poilievre. And they couldn't have that populist majority. Um, you know, not if they would have brought Pierre Poilievre in, he would have had to have followed the agenda, right? And then all the conservative people would have been like, well, wait a second, what happened here? And they need the liberals to be the bad guys. It's just like the budget that just went through. The conservatives, this was all just cosplay. It was all theater. Andrew Scheer and that other guy were waiting out in the hall just to make sure the numbers were there, and then they run in and vote, and they sell the whole story. Like, it's all bullshit. And as long as if people keep on playing this game of party politics, like, Canada doesn't have a political party problem. We have a systematic problem. And when you have two parties that are running off the same model, but like repackaging it and selling it to the public in a different format, or, wrapping it with a different bow, you're not getting anything any different. And I think that's the biggest problem with the conservative following, is that they don't see that they're really just they're voting in liberal policies and they don't even see it. And it's just, and I think the best example, and I've had this out with like some of the hardcore conservatives like Northern Perspectives, and like I'm not scared to kind of speak my mind with these people. And Bill C8's a great example. There were rumors that the conservatives were trying to get it passed, and I think a few of the quote unquote CPC influencers or propaganda machine came out in defense, like they always do. And they said, oh no, they're totally against it. Like, look at this speech. And it's just like, well, no, they're not against it. That's not what they're saying. They don't like the context or the wording. They're okay with the bill. They're just not okay with the wording. And like people aren't paying attention to that. And the fact that the conservatives are ignoring some of the more totalitarian stuff in that bill, they don't like section 15.2, which basically gives, the government officials, judicial authority, more or less, to kick people off the internet. But then if you look under that, they talk about actually flipping the switch and shutting off like certain websites to Canadians. And that, like, we're pushing now into communist Chinese like internet services here. And like the conservatives aren't even talking about this part of it in committee. Like, I've watched all these special committees, I've listened to these guys speak in the House, and these aren't the things that they're addressing. They're just addressing the dramatic part about, about these two public officials basically having judicial power. And so like this, one of the solutions that was come up in special committee was, okay, well, let's create another one of these mock, like, what are those, like the Privy Council, like these commissions that
Star chambers.
Yeah, like they made like these little fake commissions that they make that are all handpicked by the fucking government anyway. And they're the ones that make the decision, and then they pass that decision on to, well, no, why don't we keep it that you have to get a warrant? You have to, go through our judicial process, and you have to do it legally. Like we're now pushing into an area of no point, like authoritarianism, and it's the technocratic control state, right? And this is one of the things that really bothers me about the conservative following, is that because they build, I think what it is that we're so demoralized and we've gone through such hard times that even our speakers, like whether it's Northern Perspectives or Mario or or the Pleb or any of these guys, like people build like emotional relationships with them through these online venues, and they trust them as the source of information. And sometimes people have to understand is like people put their own personal needs above all else. And if a post is going to get you 150,000 more views, there's a good chance that person's going to put out that post because they don't want their following to turn on them, right? And that's the problem with the conservative movement, is we've now become the COVID, or the conservative movement has now become the COVID liberals. That's my best way I could put it, at least from my perspective. What I've seen, the disillusion, the ignorance to what's actually happening. And now what they're calling it, because Pierre Poilievre and all them got caught being sneaky, is they're now calling it strategy, right? It was all strategy. Well, no, well then just be honest with your following, right? We got to stop putting these politicians in place that are always dishonest to us, because dishonesty is how we got here, and it's not how we're going to get out of it. We're going to get out of it when we have a politician that says, listen, this is a tough, like if Pierre Poilievre would have came out and said, this is a hard pill to swallow, but we're going to abstain right across the board. Let the Liberals have their budget. We don't agree with it, but we can't force an election right now. I would respect that, right? Like that's a respectable thing. And maybe I'm just rambling on here again, and you want to jump in and share your thoughts. But yeah, that's just my perspective on a lot of this stuff.
So first things first, Clown World, thank you for sharing the stream. If everybody else could share it, we'd appreciate it. We're trying to boost up our numbers here.
Oh, I guess I
Um,
could have shared it to my audience. I didn't even think of that.
I can give you some time if you want to.
Yeah, let
Go ahead.
me. How do I
Stretch my legs.
how do I do this again? Oh, stream to your audience.
You can do it that way, or you can do it the half-ass way. Just go to X and there we go. Mark. Oh, thank you, Mark. You reposted the stream.
Okay.
Ah, we lost him.
Oh, how do I
Welcome back.
half-ass it? That's what I was gonna do. I was gonna send it to my ex. I I
Oh,
don't do I don't do this ever. So
no, we can do it live. So I'm going to go to my profile and get the link to the video, and then you just share it. I'll send it to you via DM.
oh, here we go.
All good?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna stream it to my ex for you.
Sure. I can go to some of the audience questions, comments. Peggy
Yeah.
says, Jason, if you look into Operation Gladio, this makes total sense. They created conflict on purpose.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that. That's something that I've noticed is that there is that parallel between, except this time instead of it being right wing attacking left wing factions, it's more or less left wing factions attacking right wing factions. And if we look back to like 2015 when Barbara Perry released her first right wing extremism report. Her recommendations actually, like, it's actually quite scary how all of her recommendations came to fruition. And um, I think what's even more scary about that report is that she never had it checked by um, like by a committee or an outside body. She never had her work or her methodology overlooked by an ethics board. And the government passed that. The government just accepted that, gave her hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now it's up in the millions. She's getting something like 2 million for all this work. And it honestly looks like a government operation. Like, that's how scary it is. A lot of people, there are people out there that say, oh, our government's just stupid. And no, they're just counting on you to be stupid, to believe that they're stupid. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're pushing us in the direction they want us to go. And that's my perspective on that. But yeah,
It's
Project
really
Gladio is
scary.
interesting.
No, I was just going to say it's very scary. What I was going to say previously is if you go to the Conservative Party Constitution and if you read it, they have their values at the top.
Yeah.
And every 4 years they dust it off, like the rule of law, the supremacy of God, the primacy of the family unit, the importance of small business, individual rights. And but they don't mean any of this stuff. The other 3 years and 11 months, they just go along with liberal policy.
Yeah, it's again, that's where you have to start questioning whether the deep state exists, and there's actually like rich greed heads, corporate greed heads that are really pulling the strings. And because what they tell us they're going to do, and what they do is, everyone says that we got here by Trudeau, and that's not even true. We got here because of Harper. And like, conservatives just can't admit it. There's constant, you say that publicly and you just get dogpiled by these guys. And it's just, I think accountability and recognition are two very important qualities for human beings to have in order to be successful in, to navigate this crazy world we're living in. And if we don't have those two qualities, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I think we see that. I think we see that right across the board.
There is almost no accountability. Like I think my podcast is in like year three now. And the way I see it, it's like the corruption is municipal, provincial, federal.
Yeah.
It's gone into the courts, it's gone into the military, it's gone into law enforcement. It probably always was with the tribes. And
Hmm.
then now they've fused with organized crime. And it's like
Hmm.
we don't have a government in the sense, you know how like COVID, sorry, the COVID vaccine wasn't a vaccine. I don't think our
Yeah.
government is a government the way we think it's the word government, what it means.
No, no, these guys don't write legislation or nothing. Like they're just like all the legislation, all that's produced by think tanks, right? They're just given talking points and they have to memorize their speeches. And I'll tell you one thing, like the conservatives do a much better job than the liberals. Like that's how ignorant the liberals are. Is the conservatives do a much better job of like selling the theater, where like the liberals are just lazy and they just show up to work, disheveled with shitty, like don't even know how to tie a double Windsor knot, and like just lazy, incompetent. And then you have the conservatives that are actually like prepped and primed. It's almost like it's being done on purpose. Like it's like a movie. Like I tell my brother, there's one thing I tell my brother all is like the easiest way to get through this is just imagine you're like literally in a Batman movie. And that's the easiest way is like you're in Gotham City and just there's mass corruption everywhere. And all these like people that are dyeing their hair blue, those are the Joker's thugs. And yeah, so it's just I wish people saw things and that's another thing I've always been curious about is, and maybe you can kind of touch on this, is what's what's preventing people from seeing what we see?
I can try to answer that. One is money. So I come out of an urban center.
Sure.
If you have money, especially if your money is in property and inflation is inflating the asset value,
Hmm.
something about the urban centers, people just want to be happy. Pumpkin spice lattes, hot yoga, getting together with friends, having wine, rooftop parties. I'm miserable because I'm researching this shit all the time, and I'm like, holy crap, this is way worse than I thought it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's one of it. Part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it might be spiritual. You know what? They put this exact question to RFK Jr. before he decided to run for office.
Sure. Yeah.
And they asked him, they're like, why is it, that what's special about the 20%? He evaded it. And they asked him again. And then finally he said, I don't know. Like, that's the one question I just don't know.
Yeah. It's just I can't make sense of it. I was awake in probably about like 2008 or 9, and then like I had to go back to sleep uh because like it's just the world wasn't ready yet. And then once COVID happened, and like I said, I had to go see, like, is this a false flag? Is this, like, what's happening? And I just jumped in my truck and drove to Ottawa. And yeah, and I realized, like, holy shit, there's tons of people awake now. Like, but then here's what's interesting is it's almost like everybody went back to sleep. Like there's a large majority of people that went back to sleep. Like all of a sudden, like we see these digital ID initiatives, like these are all being pushed. The foundations are all being built by conservative governments. They're not being built by liberal governments. The liberal governments are actually like voting against this stuff. And it's the conservatives that that they're not specifically saying, oh, like let's have digital ID. What they're doing is they're building like the open banking system, or they're building like the digital health card, or they're so if you look at that chart by the World Economic Forum, they're building all the structure for until digital ID just becomes mandatory, and then all the structures there. And like whenever, and I think Whitney Webb said this, she says what these groups do is they just repackage it and resell it to the populist majority, and use a person that's more palatable. And right now, like the Conservatives and Danielle Smith, like everyone loves Danielle Smith, but no one questioned that Danielle Smith, like My Alberta App ID and the wallet, and like you even look putting the nationality on their driver's license now, like that's all part of the globalist agenda, like open borders, right? Like having that nationality on your driver's license, like that's like Elysium dystopian stuff right there. And like it's like kind of flying under people's radar. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down this rabbit hole, but I was thinking a story my father told me. He said when he was young, so I guess in the 70s,
Sure, yeah.
to get on a plane, his buddy would drive him onto the runway. He would go buy a ticket from the pilot, and he'd take his suitcase onto the plane, put it in the seat next to him. There is no law of nature that says that the government has to know who gets on a plane, all the time at any given time, especially domestically. You can make an argument like if this is coming into your country. But if I'm going from Vancouver to Toronto, they don't need to know that. But it's just been programmed into us that the government has to know who's in the air at all times.
Yeah, they sell it through fear, right? Like look at after 9/11. Like I think 9/11 was a good example, like the Patriot Act, and then Harper followed that up in 2012 with C-51, which is pretty much the Patriot Act, right? Because CSEC was, the Communication Security Establishment was caught like gathering, and they've been doing it since 9/11. They're building profiles and collecting emails and data on Canadians, and then that all came out in the wash. And then basically Harper said, all right, well, we'll just create a bill to make it legal. And that's where you get C-51. And like I guess we can be fortunate as Canadians is that we don't really have false flags that take the lives of our citizens like we see, and like we saw with the Boston bombing. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that that's a false flag, but when we see these events that happen around the world,
the Titanic. Let's go with the Titanic.
Yeah, the Titanic. So we don't have these, but we almost did, right? You look at the RCMP. We're trying to get those two drug addicts in Vancouver during Canada's Day to like, and that was right around the Boston bombing. Was they're trying to get them to basically put those pressure cooker bombs all over.
What?
You've never heard the podcast Pressure Cooker?
No.
Oh, dude, you gotta listen to it. So what happened was the RCMP co-opted these two Muslim drug addicts, and this was right around the same time that the Boston bombings happened. And what this group of RCMP officers created this Mr. Big Sting situation, but they were going to actually let these guys like blow up like Vancouver, like Victoria, like during Canada's Day, and create like a massive terror attack. And the RCMP got busted. You got to check it out. It's crazy. It's a crazy story. It's called Pressure Cooker, and it's a podcast.
I've never heard of that, but like, who watches the watchers? Like, if the RCMP does something like this, there's no accountability because I have no faith in our legislature. I mean, they can't keep our judiciary under control.
Well, exactly. Like, it's just like all the stories about Coots, right? How much of you talk we hear these stories about these sealed envelopes, and David Johnston, the Crown Attorney, he was more or less directing the RCMP. Like, there's been rumors of that, which is totally against the law. And then there's all these talks about all these weapons that were rounded up. They didn't even belong to these guys, and it just makes you wonder. Like, it makes you wonder. And then you hear Lauren Southern's story more recently. I'm not sure if you heard about that, where CSIS actually tried to co-opt her in being a
Oh yeah. She got the audio tapes.
yeah, she got audio, where they're pretty much threatening her and her family, and uh, you know, just saying that they're going to spin a narrative on her, and create this whole story to make her look guilty, and like constantly telling her it's not what people know, it's what you can prove. And it's just like, this is our state turning on, operating against our own people. And I've seen Lauren's work. Like, I don't know her personally or anything like that, but she doesn't, like, she's not a Russian agent. Like, she's always been against mass immigration. Like, that's one thing she's always stood against. And yeah, I don't understand where they would think that she was a Russian agent. But again, they know her influence, they know her power. And that's what makes me question, like, you know, some of these other guys aren't even nearly as smart as Lauren is. And they have these massive fucking followings. It would be nothing for CSIS to turn them into assets. So yeah, it's just like, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting that Canadians live under this veil of paranoia almost, or at least you have to, because it's exactly what you said. Who watches the watchers? Because we don't have anybody.
It's a phrase that I just recently heard used, the Praetorian sort of guard.
Yeah.
You probably know what that is, right? What it was in Rome.
Refresh my memory.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. The Praetorian Guard, the first emperor of Rome, he created this army within Rome so that he could keep the senators in line. But after that, like, they just completely went rogue, and they
Okay,
became
yeah,
it basically, it's synonymous with deep state.
sure, yeah.
And like CSIS, there's no accountability, right? A CSIS agent can spy on you and me right now without consequence. If I go spy on that CSIS agent, like if I park outside his house
Oh
with
yeah, no.
binoculars and I'm watching his wife and kid, I'm in jail for like life. Well, they'll throw me in jail in remand like they did with Coots.
Yeah, except the thing is, they don't have to sit outside, in a parking lot and stare at you with binoculars anymore. They can just turn on Pegasus and flip on your cameras, looking through your cell phone, look at your security cams. Like, that's how dystopian
Next thing you
things.
know, your pager blows up.
Yeah. Yeah, you're getting unknown phone calls and weird text messages, and yeah, like, it's a little bit different now, but yeah, it's true. Like, if you did that to our politicians or to anyone, uh, uh
Take, I'll give you a concrete example. John Carpe,
yeah,
he technically spied or whatever, followed a judge.
he paid
There's
an investigator. Yeah.
Right, but what I mean is, I've talked to many lawyers, and everyone says, like, yeah, he shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. But if you flip the script, if like somebody else follows John Carpe, like a cop or a judge, and someone, they'd be like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's official business.
Yeah, I actually had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Carpe about that. I my other business, I bought NHL hockey tickets for an alumni game, and I gave the advertising and the tickets to the JCCF when they came to London as like a donation. and I actually got to go to dinner with Mr. Carpe, and I got to speak to him about that, and he even said like, I shouldn't have did that, blah blah blah. And I was all like, no, I was all like, don't ever regret what you did. Your hunch, your gut was telling you something. You trusted your intuition. You acted on that, and you have nothing to feel guilty for. And he's like, I've never heard anyone like put it that way, because they live in a place of where you have to be accountable or submissive to the law, right?
Well, the judge is the sovereign. The judge is a
Yeah,
deity. That's the impression. And I talked to one judge,
sure. Yeah,
one lawyer, and I said, what happened to John Carpe? It was wrong. She's like, no, I mean he followed a judge.
yeah,
We've elevated the judge. The judge is supposed to be a referee, not God.
yeah. It's and like you're seeing these decisions that are being made that are going to be very harmful in the future. And I think just reading into Bill C-39 recently is a good example of that, where the Trudeau government, removed in, the Spreading of False News Act based off a decision that was made in 1990, and that was right before the COVID pandemic. Basically, that
1990.
yeah. So no. So back in 1990, there was a gentleman who was charged. Like the RCMP, they rang up a bunch of charges on him. One of the charges was spreading false news. Okay, back then it was illegal. The judge struck that charge down and said that it was unconstitutional, and it went against and it went in that particular case, it went against the person's right to freedom of expression. And he kind of talks about in the judgment about how that law is like, it walks a fine line on somebody's ability, or you know charter rights, like under 2B of the charter, like freedom of expression. He said it walks a fine line. So and then you're watching a lot of these immigrants and a lot of people now, they're only getting charged with second degree murder, right? Because this was another law under 230, um under section 230 of the criminal code. Basically, um it used to state that somebody in Canada would be guilty of murder whether the offense was the intent to commit murder or not. So if you raped or robbed somebody and the person died in the commission of the robbery or the rape, you'd be charged with murder too. Well, because in 1992 a judge found that this person wasn't guilty, and that he expressed, that like the person didn't mean it, so he shouldn't be charged with first degree murder, blah 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 blah. Trudeau struck that from in Bill C-39. He struck that from the criminal code as well. He also struck anal sex from the criminal code as well in that bill. And that same bill, they've been building off that bill. That's how MAID got introduced, was through Bill C-39. So they just now keep adding to that same bill. Like they amend that bill and they add new laws that they want to kind of like either remove or whatever from the
Okay,
criminal.
time out. Time out.
Yeah,
This is so much information. Let's take it one step at a time. What is your view? You're in journalism. What's your view on spreading fake news? Like, is this a free speech thing, or should it be illegal?
okay. So I think that every journalist, they have like, there should be like ethical standards that you follow, and I think you should be accountable for the harm that you cause. Um, I think you have the freedom. It's just like I could run around and call you a retard all day, but eventually you're going to serve me with a notice, right? And I got to live with the consequences for those decisions. The problem is, in this particular case, is we have an apparatus or government institutions that are running propaganda campaigns, and there's no way to punish them for it. And it's abusive. It's psychologically abusing. Like, they psychologically abused us over the pandemic. And this is where it kind of, like, it kind of pulls at your strings, because if you're a free speech absolutist, you believe that people can say what they want. But at the same time, if there's like a government operation where they're running propaganda to specifically harm the public, and there's nothing to protect the public from that propaganda, then we're beyond free speech anymore. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't even know if I'm making sense, because, like I said, it just kind of it kind
I
of pulled.
can I can make
pulled
it make sense. I
Sure, yeah, like, sure, yeah.
I brought a guest on. He studied the common law, and he goes, the concept of capital crime. Like, to me, I always thought that word meant you get executed. But he goes, capital crime under British common law used to mean abusing your office to commit a crime. So it was above and beyond. So Jason, you lying through wiretap media, spreading false news, that's bad. But the government doing it, which we call propaganda, that's above and beyond bad.
Mhm. Yeah, it's true. It is because they're supposed to be like our safeguard, our last line of defense. And what they did to the people over COVID was, it's unforgivable, in my opinion. Um, they like People deserve justice. There are people maimed. There are people injured. Um, there are people that are dead, and those are the realities we face. And the fact that they were able to convince a very large portion of the public that people who thought that way are crazy. Like, their healthy 37-year-old uncle that just died of a heart attack was just a coincidence. Like, it was just an accident. It doesn't happen all the time. But then, they're hearing that their friend's friend died, uncle died, or cousin died, and it's just like, and they're not. I don't know. I think it's almost like we live in such a high paced society now that people can't really remember, you know? Um, that's one thing I pride myself on, is I have really good recall, especially on things that I research or read, or even videos I watch. Like, that's why I can clip the videos I can in such a quick time and do quick turnaround, is because, like, I could remember the exact date that that person made that comment, and I could go back to that video and I could clip it, and so it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's an abusive situation, and people need to be punished. But I don't think Canadians are going to get their justice until they stand up. That's the saddest part, is like, it's going to be up to Canadians. And that doesn't necessarily look like, war in the streets, or civil war or anything like that. It's just about taking your power back, and making these people realize that they work for you and you don't work for them. And it's the same with CSIS and the RCMP. Um, you know, there's all sorts of ways that the people have way more power, and that's control of information. Like, we've seen that now with, like, social media, like how fast things can spin on a dime. Like, we saw that with when Mr. Sunshine Baby went on that campaign of getting Polyev to, like, stand up for Tamara and Chris, and speak out. Like, we pounded his social media, and, like, we proved that, that the people do have power. It's just that they have to harness it properly, and they have to work together in unison. Um, and, like, this may sound like a libertarian tactic, but, like, we also control finances too. Like, in war, what's one of the, like, first strategies they do? They cut off supply lines. Like if we went on strike, the government would be fucked. They need our money. Like if you did a nationwide tax halt on small businesses across the country and you got enough businesses on board to really fucking make an impact and they all just decided, we're not going to be filing this year, and the government would feel that pain. Like if they didn't turn in their HST, if the government would really feel that.
Can you imagine if one province escrowed all their taxes for 10 years?
Oh
What
fuck.
impact it would have?
Alberta, imagine if Alberta did.
Oh, Quebec would be toast.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So it's like people have to understand we have the power. It's just we've been so demoralized, and it's just a shame. You said you're now in Florida.
Yeah, I'm just here for a little while, and
Oh, I
I
thought
can.
you actually moved.
No. I'm just here for a little while, and I don't know if it was at the beginning of the episode or in the backstage. We were talking about how Canada's quasi-communist.
Mhm.
I I go to a small town, any small town, Montana, I don't know, Ohio, anywhere. You go to the hardware store, they have more commerce, more trade, more turnover in a small town of like 20,000 people than a big town in Canada of like 3, 4, 500,000 people.
That's
It's
crazy.
that is the hallmark of a communist society where they depress productivity. Like nothing's being produced, nothing is being built,
That's
and you don't notice this when you're in Canada because you just assume Canada is exactly like America. We're just safer and nicer and with healthcare.
Do we have healthcare though? Like, I'm not even
Well,
convinced.
no, not anymore. But like the elbows up liberals are still trying to push the illusion. But you're right. Like we don't even have healthcare anymore. All we have now is that we don't have guns,
Yeah, yeah,
which
that's
is not which is not something to be bragging about.
and it's not something you really want happening in a communist state, right? So, um, I don't know. Like we've just gone to this place where, and I hope this gun buyback that people just tell them go fuck yourselves, right? Like that's the best thing that can happen because the government can't enforce something that people will not comply to. You gonna arrest 4 million? Like you keep letting these fucking your new Canadians out on the street every other night because you have no space for them. Where are you going to put 3 or 4 million Canadians, right? Who just refuse that they're not going to turn over their guns. And that's like the best outcome. Like that's what you can hope for. But we'll see. We'll see.
The problem is they don't have to. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree. They don't have to arrest all 4 million. They just have to make an example of one. Look at Arthur Pawlowski. Like they almost killed that guy in jail. Like they just have to quietly make an example of like a half dozen of them.
Yeah, it's fair. No, that's a fair assessment. You're absolutely right there. They only have to make and I think Tamara and Chris are a good example of that too. Like, you know, fuck, what did they spent like a $500,000 in legal fees, and they want to take Chris's truck and take his livelihood. And you even look at the guys in Coots, like that's another good example. You're probably right about that. But
The Coots boys, sorry, that really pisses me off because it wasn't just like the government destroyed their lives, but then on the right, I noticed people were attacking the Coots boys, like they're digging up things about their past life. I'm like, that's irrelevant.
yeah, well, that's another thing too. Is like it's like people aren't allowed a past or allowed to make mistakes. Like everyone's looking for some sort of piece of dirt. Um, and that's one thing. Like, so when I was sharing Karima Saad's work about like the Canadian anti-hate and stuff, I actually had like some anonymous like Antifa person email me about her boyfriend and sent me like his total criminal record. And I'm just like, I wrote back, I was like, this was from like 20 years ago. And then I was all like, we're allowed our mistakes. I was all like, what they're doing is not wrong, and what they're saying is not wrong. Like just because the guy made mistakes in the past doesn't mean that, he's lying about what he's doing now. And then all of a sudden on Blue Sky, it just lit up, and a bunch of these Antifa accounts, uh, they just what did they say? They're like, "Oh, that wiretap guy whiffed. He didn't even go like." And like then they just like that's when they doxed me. They shared my real last name, and
Oh,
but it's just like, and I just said to him, I was like, "What am I supposed to be scared? Like, is this supposed to create fear? That you guys have my last name. Like, I got nothing to hide. I've made mistakes too. You know, what's nothing terribly bad or any sort of legal trouble. But I think eh, being somebody that made those mistakes when I was younger and not getting caught, you're a little bit more sympathetic for people that just fucked up, you know? Uh, and that's the problem is like everybody's looking for a string to pull on, and it keeps us divided. It's exactly what you said. Like the guys are jumping on the Coots guys when we should have been rallying behind those boys.
right there. Rotten says criminal pasts are only relevant if they apply to the current situation.
Yeah, it's true. That's a fact. If it's
I,
like
to a
like
certain point, like if you massacred a nursery, maybe not, but
yeah, like I don't suspect we're too many people are forgiving Carla Kamolka anytime soon, but if we're talking like perpetual fraud, right? If somebody is perpetually committing fraud, then you're obviously gonna treat them accordingly. But if it's something somebody did a long time ago, there's no reason to continue to pull at that string. And I think what the problem with the right is that we denounce people they denounce people on the right and attack people on the right, and the left doesn't even have to do it. Like, do you see the left attacking Antifa or denouncing Antifa? No. They're all like, Antifa doesn't exist.
another, yeah, you're right. But then another more subtle way is on the right, we always start out saying, well, I'm not a racist, but I don't agree with Donald Trump all the time. But, like we always make these declarations. You don't hear anybody on the left saying, well, like, I don't always agree with Nancy Pelosi. However, in this case,
Yeah, it's like I think we need to stop that. We need to stop it altogether. Um, and that's why, like, do I agree? Like, I'm sure you and I disagree with a lot of stuff. Um, and there's stuff that I may disagree with some of the guys from Second Sons. But if we believe in freedom of expression, then we have to challenge those ideas, and they have to be able to challenge our ideas. And that's how a healthy democratic society functions. It doesn't function by denouncing them, shutting them out, because you know the greatest inventions of the world are put together from multiple great ideas. Like picking from different trees to different tree branches, or to grab like the right formula. And that's how we come. That's how we've built empires. And I just think it's irresponsible of us to do that. I think we need to stop that. Um, you know, Try to engage with these people, like the people that you may disagree with on the right. Get a feel for what they're talking about. There's some people that just aren't going to be receptive to you, or they won't have. Uh, you're not going to get a good response from them. Those aren't the people you engage with, right? Um, and the truth is bad ideas, they don't last long. So it is what it is.
Jason, that's actually a really good place to end it. I don't want to take up any more of your time. It's been 1 hour. I could talk to you for another 3 hours, but let's end it
Yeah,
there.
no, dude, and I'm sorry, I just probably rambled on here, but I
Well, that's why
appreciate.
you're here. People aren't here to hear me talk. They're here to hear you talk.
No, well, I appreciate you having me on. And it's been a little while, so yeah, I'm glad we finally connected and made this happen.
Well, maybe if people probably know what Wiretap Media is, but if they don't, how do they follow you?
Just Twitter, and I got a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. It's all under Wiretap Media. I'm currently going to be working on a website. I want to actually make it, be a functioning media company, like a legitimate one with articles and stuff. It's taking a bit of time, and I'm hoping that I'm going to have at least the base or the frame up for the website, hopefully by Christmas.
Well, Jason, best of luck with that, and keep up the great work. Like you're doing fantastic work. That Ukraine thread you put out, I thought that was really impressive. So great work.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. All right.
All right. Take care, and
Okay.
goodbye to the audience.
Yeah. Bye.